we wind back to 2007, I was your typical overachieving type A mother of a 2-year-old who was 8 months pregnant and decided it was an ideal time to tear down my house that was 1,200 square feet and build a 3,000 square foot house. I'd watched a little bit too much HGTV at the time. Sounded like a great plan, moved into the smallest rental house we could find in our neighborhood. Baby was born, everything was perfect, house was coming along fine, I was gonna go back to work. I mean, I knew what I was doing. I was an executive. I knew what was happening in life. I had it going on. And I moved my son, Tommy, my 11-year-old now, well, he'll be 11 on Monday. I moved Tommy from the bassinet to the changing table, and his arms shot out, and his eyes moved to the side. And I was like, that was weird. He was just startled. He's fine. Put him into the bath. He does it again. And I was like, well, what was that? So I call the pediatrician. They're like, check his temperature. I'm like, yeah, I did. He doesn't have a fever. Check it again. I'm like, he doesn't have a fever. They're like, go to the ER. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I went to the ER, dropped my son off at my friend's house, my older son, Mitchell, and I said, yeah, I'll be back in an hour. I don't know what's going on. They just want us to go check on something at the ER. Yeah. So we're checking in. He does it again. Arms go out, eyes go to the side, and the nurse who's checking us in says, how long has your son been having seizures? I was like, what? It's not a seizure. Like, it's the first time I'd ever even heard that. I'm like, what's this lady talking about? Seizures are much more dramatic. I'd seen those on TV. I knew what a seizure was. And next thing you know, we were thrown into this world, and within 2 weeks, my husband and I had seen 4 neurologists. We had spent the night for overnight EEGs in 2 different hospitals. We'd had 2 MRIs, and we'd had a CAT scan, okay? I'm a little bit type A. And so all we had learned at the end of these 2 weeks was that our son was born with a brain malformation. He had something called focal cortical dysplasia. He had this thing called infantile spasms, and he was taking medication, and it wasn't working. That's all we knew. So we were sitting out on the front porch of our little rental house, and I looked at my husband, and we both were just shell-shocked. I mean, I knew how to handle things. And I just looked at him, and I asked the question that everybody would ask. I just looked at him, and I said, so what kind of tile do you think we should put in the master bath? And we laughed so hard because prior to this happening, those were the types of conversations that we had on that front porch. I don't know, what do you think about this color? I mean, it was just really put things in perspective, and it also set the tone for the journey that we were about to go on. So Tommy was 5 months, and we were struggling trying to get seizure control. We were having 10 to 100 seizures a day. We were being faced with, okay, you want to do a hemispherectomy, which is, you guys, it's great to talk to an audience that actually understands these terms. Or we could try this thing called ACTH. And it sounded pretty scary. I read about it online, and people didn't react to it well. And so Thanksgiving 2007, we checked into the hospital that week. And after 2 injections, Tommy's seizures stopped. And ACTH gave us 20 months of seizure freedom. And in those 20 months, we had every type of therapy you can imagine come to our house and help us. And our little boy found his voice, and he was doing amazing. I fixed it. We were good. And then on August 4th, 2009, the seizures came back. So, of course, I was going to go fix it. So we worked through it. They came back slowly, and after about 4 years, we had to look at surgical options. And Tommy was born with a brain malformation, so we knew that we were a surgical candidate. So that was my answer. We're going to go get surgery. Perfect. So we reviewed 3 different surgical centers. We decided upon, and surgeons, we decided upon Dr. Bingaman at the Cleveland Clinic in Ohio. And we were getting ready to go there, and I was going to make the reservation, and my husband said, we're not flying to Cleveland. Excuse me? I live in Sacramento, by the way, which is right here in Northern California. What do you mean? He's like, we're going to drive. I'm like, it's December. He's like, yeah, we're going to drive. I'm like, why? He's like, I don't want to be that family that gets on an airplane to go have brain surgery. I'm like, we are that family. And he's like, no, we're not. I'm like, okay. So we took the most direct route to Cleveland. We went through Wyoming to show the kids where we got married, up into South Dakota so that we could get another state on our list, up to Minnesota. If you guys know your geography, this is not the most direct route. And then we drove down from Minnesota. We had New Year's there and drove down from Minnesota to the Cleveland Clinic. And we were there, did our pre-surgical evaluations, and they said, we don't know enough. We're going to do the intracranial EEG, and we're going to see if we can really help this boy. So they went and they looked, and we did the cranial EEG. We were back in the stayed in the hospital a while longer, and the results were pretty inconclusive. They said, we think we can probably do it, but we can't guarantee you're going to have seizure freedom. His brain has to heal. Why don't you go back home? So we drove back home, and the seizures got worse, and we started going into status. And I said, this is not fun, so why don't we go back to Cleveland? So we had a family wedding that we had to be in. I had to put on a guava chiffon dress at 43 and be a bridesmaid, which was great, in Cancun. And so, of course, we decided that we would go to Cleveland via Cancun. Once again, the most direct route. And we went there and we had our brain surgery, and my parents met us, and my older son Mitchell was 10 at the time. My parents came out, and my stepdad took Mitchell to the Indians game so that he didn't have to, stay with us in the hospital as we fretted over the surgery. And the surgery was a success in that Tommy made it through. The surgery was a success that they got some of the malformation, but it wasn't a guarantee. And I mean, nothing's a guarantee, but Dr. Bingham wasn't fully confident that we were going to be seizure-free. So we flew back home, and 3 days later, Tommy had a seizure. So once again, David and I were sitting there, devastated, and he asked the logical question that you would ask in that situation. And he looked at me and he goes, think we can get our money back? And it was at that moment I realized that I was focused on completely the wrong thing. I was focused on the destination. I was focused on fixing Tommy. I was focused on surgery was going to be my answer. And the story I just told you was actually about the journey. And it was really fantastic, because when I think about Cleveland, I don't think about the 13 nights I spent in the hospital. I think about the bald eagle we saw in Wyoming. I think about the Grand Tetons. I think about our friends that we saw along the way. I think about the Indians game. I think about all these other really fun, cool things that happened to our family, because that's the journey. And that's all we have. That's all we have is where we are right now and the journey we're on. So Tommy's going to be in April, it'll be 4 years since he had surgery. We've had a VNS. We don't have seizure control. But I'm not trying to fix him. And don't misunderstand me. Trust me, I want to scream from the top of Mount Tam and say, my kid's seizure-free. I haven't given up on that hope. But I've decided to change my focus and not focus on fixing Tommy, but focus on the joy and the wonderful things about Tommy. So wherever you guys are in your journey, because we're all in a different place with our journey, think about enjoying the moment, because none of our lives are guaranteed. No one knows what their destination is. And I see these people at these conferences that are doing amazing things with epilepsy, and as a mom, it gives me so much hope, because Tommy's life is going to be great, and it's going to be Tommy's life and Tommy's journey. And so that's what I've learned so far, and I'm still on it. And maybe I'll see you guys in a year, and maybe I will be screaming from the top of Mount Tam. I haven't given up hope, but that's where we are. So wherever you are in your journey, please try to remember to enjoy it, because it's all we have.